goodness, I am so excited for you to listen to this episode. You guys are probably going to want to be able to take notes. I've got 2 full crazy pages of notes after interviewing Jennifer and Laura from Richfield Public Schools. They have expanded their communication department extensively over the past 5+ years. They're going to kind of break down some of that journey and talk about how social media fits into that. But then we're going to dive deep into the implementation of a new communication tool. They're going to talk about the research and planning that went into that, what they see as the most important factor, which is not selecting the right tool. It's actually getting the buy-in from your staff who's going to have to use the tool. They share their survey resources in the show notes. So you're going to want to make sure to check out the show notes, and then don't miss out on the best social media tip at the end as Laura wraps this up. Really great stuff, especially as you think about storytelling in the new school year. I think Laura's really onto something in regards to what people crave to see in their social media feed. And if you are looking to make a difference in your social media for next year, don't forget about my book, Social Media for Schools. It is available now on Amazon. We're doing a free book study coming up. It actually starts later this week is the first session. So get signed up. It's totally free. We have a couple hundred people signed up for that, and it's your chance to get a guidance as you go through the chapters of this book. A most recent review for Social Media for Schools comes from Janice, and she gave it a 5-star review with relatable and a goldmine of practical strategies. Janice says, highly recommended. Just finished reading Social Media for Schools, and I am beyond impressed. This book is a goldmine of practical strategies and creative ideas tailored for educational environments. It's perfect for anyone looking to showcase their school spirit while effectively managing their social media presence. What sets this book apart is its focus on celebrating students and staff in authentic and engaging ways. The tips on maintaining a balanced approach to digital storytelling are particularly invaluable, truly a sanity saver. Whether you're a social media newbie or a seasoned pro, this book offers insights that can transform your school's social media outreach. A must-read for educators and administrators dedicated to making a positive impact in their communities through social media. End of review. Janice, thank you so much. If you haven't grabbed your copy, now is the time. Head on over to Amazon or wherever you buy books and check out Social Media for Schools. Now let's get to today's quick K-12 PR tip. All right, today's K-12 PR tip is all about developing a budget for your communications or marketing efforts. You guys, if you have been following the news, we know birth rates are actually declining, which means the competition is fierce. Also, there's a lot of opportunities and alternatives for parents and where they send their kids to school. There are public schools, there are public charter schools, there are virtual schools, there are private school options, right? There are just a lot of opportunities. There's homeschooling that's, people are interested in pursuing. So the competition is getting more and more fierce for less and less students. Now is not the time to back off of your communication or your marketing efforts. Because those of you who do, your schools that are not investing, like you're going to learn how Richfield is investing in it now, they're going to be left behind, and it's really going to be a struggle. So I'm going to urge you, a wise man once told me, Bob Noyad out of CISO Communications, it's like, you get about what? $7,000 to $10,000 per student that comes into your school is usually what you are awarded either through tuition or through the state, through public education. What if we set aside $10 per student for marketing, efforts? Okay. $10 to help market and tell your stories and maybe advertise or invest in tools like you're going to learn about today. What if we set that money aside? What could that end up getting us in the long run? Because if you can attract or retain students, that adds to your bottom line. So I just want to urge you to think about that. And maybe you need some of that argument or discussion points when you talk with your staff. It just breaks my heart to see schools cutting back on communication positions when they should be investing in them, cutting back from marketing efforts when you actually should be investing in those, because it ultimately is going to positively impact the bottom line for your school. And you're going to help impact more families, more students, and the future. I believe it helps make this world a better place. Okay. So take a look at your marketing, your communications budget, and maybe have that conversation with your leadership team. Can we set aside this much? I know we all want it to go to our students, but if we don't have students and we have less and less students, we have less money to work with. So I love that. This is a quick explanation of it. I plan to further expand on this thought in the future. But now let's get to this week's amazing interview with Laura and Jennifer from Richfield Public Schools in Minnesota. Welcome to the podcast, two for the price of one. We have Jennifer Valley and Laura Hrad. Did I pronounce that right, Laura?
You did.
Okay, awesome. They are from Richfield Public Schools in Minnesota. And so before we get too much into the story and the topic that we're going to cover today, I am going to let you both introduce yourselves, kind of a brief background and what you do at Richfield Public Schools. So Jennifer, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I'm currently the Director of Marketing and Communications here for Richfield Public Schools. I started working in education in 1997 and in school PR in 2013. This will be my fifth year. I'm coming up on 5 years in Richfield Public Schools, and my role is primarily on the strategic side. So some of our strategic communications, bigger communication plans, marketing plans, brand implementation, and crisis communication. So that's my focus.
Okay. And how big, can you just tell me a little bit about Richfield Public Schools, like, kind of the population and how many students, diversity, all of that stuff?
Sure. We have about 4,200 students, give or take. We are a one high school district, one middle school, and 4 elementaries. We also have a preschool program and an alternative learning program. We are located just south of Minneapolis. We're a first-ring suburb of Minneapolis, Minnesota. And we are approximately 40 to 50% white, and the rest students of color, mostly Hispanic.
Okay, awesome. And can I ask you, you started in education in 1997, you said. So what was your first entry into the education sector?
My very first entry was actually an AmeriCorps national service position in Minneapolis Public Schools. I did that for a year thinking I wanted to be a teacher. It took about a week for me to realize I did not want to be a teacher, but was passionate about education and wanting to continue in the field in some way, which I then obviously have continued to do for the last, 20 or 30 years.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, I love it. And I love that we can get exposed at a young age and know what we definitely do want to do or don't want to do. So good for you. Okay, Laura, your turn.
Hi. I started in school communications in November of 2020 when I was hired at Richfield Public Schools. Before that, I worked in travel. So COVID forced a career change for me, but it's one that I've been really happy with and see myself in the long run. So school communications is where it's at. At Richfield, I'm our digital communications specialist. We're a 2-man team. So my primary role is managing our social media pages, creating and distributing newsletters internally and externally, and then just trying to tell the story of our district through the amazing things that our students are doing, finding those, interviewing them, sharing them out with our community, and just really trying to write about all of the awesome things that happen here.
Yeah. So did you go from a 1-person department, Jennifer, to a 2-person then in November of 2020?
Yeah, Laura was my first hire. Before me, there wasn't a communications person in this district at all. So I came in and kind of created the role and created and then built the department. And we also have 0.5 with us as well, who focuses on enrollment. So she's our enrollment coordinator, but is part of our team as well, since most of what we do is tied to enrollment for the district.
Okay. Richfield just has an amazing story. We're going to link to all your website and your social media channels, but just the evolution over these past 5 years. Thank goodness, Jennifer, that they added you when they did 5 years ago, right? And then Laura, how unique that, when one door closes, another one opens. And obviously, COVID meant the travel part was down, but it opened this new door. How did you hear about this position, Laura?
I actually had someone really close to me sent it to me, and she was like, "You totally need to apply for this." And the travel agency I was working for was right up the road in just north of the border of Richfield, so technically South Minneapolis. And I lived up in St. Louis Park at the time, and I was like, "Ah, the commute would be like the same, and this seems like a steady, like interesting job." I have a degree in communications and journalism, so it was a really good fit. And yeah, it was just a great jump.
Yeah, I love it. Jennifer, going back, the 5 years, this is totally off script, sorry, but do you have any insight into what happened at Richfield that impacted that belief and that investment in marketing and communications? Because basically going from 0 to now 2.5 is a huge leap in 5 years. And it's definite. I mean, well, I don't know all the data, but I really think it's obviously making a difference. But what do you think led to that kind of change in your culture and the direction of the district?
Sure. We were a declining district.
Okay.
We still are, but not as much.
Okay.
So there was a lot of families just staying in their homes longer, even though their kids had grown and moved out, and we're landlocked. We're not building a lot of new family housing here. So the enrollment was the major issue. And one of the things that they went to first was a rebrand. They had a very old brand with the Spartans, but it was an old mascot, old logo. And as we all know, branding is more than just mascots and logos, right? So they brought in an external firm to guide them through that process and engage the community and students, faculty, everybody in this whole branding process. And it was part of that process and the people that they worked with that convinced the superintendent that they needed a staff member to not only fully implement this once they, got through that process, but just all the other benefits, right, that a communications and marketing person could bring, because this team that they had hired was intimately familiar with that and came from that background, and they couldn't believe they didn't have someone in this role. So it was a lot of coercion.
Yeah. Well, and I even take a step back. So Social School for EDU years ago, we did the social media management. They didn't have a person. And so I'm so thankful, that you entered into the rebranding process and then got you in your role, Jennifer, because it is a need, especially in a district your size. So that's amazing. So Laura, you mentioned you are in the social media more, day-to-day role. So can you just tell me what social media channels you manage for the district and just how you kind of lay out the social media part of your storytelling?
For sure. Yeah. We're the most active on Facebook and Instagram. I would say those are our two primary platforms. We're also on LinkedIn and YouTube. We like to stay active there, posting any of our videos, both in-house and professionally produced. We post stories on Google to try to keep our Google profile up to date. And then we're also on X, formerly known as Twitter, but we're not quite as active there as we were when I started with all of the changes that have happened with Twitter. So,
Okay.
and then as far as managing our calendar, we have a pretty robust editorial calendar that I like to just make sure that everything is shared in the right places that it should be. And some of that includes posting on our communities. Our community has a very large Facebook page that are probably Jennifer, 30,000 people?
About 30,000, yeah.
Yeah. And it's very active. So we really enjoy posting a lot of the great things that happen on there as well. So that's our district level. And then we also have, like Jennifer mentioned, 4 elementaries, a middle and a high school, and they each have their own official Facebook page. So I'm responsible for those at kind of the high level, but I've assembled a really great team of school-based social media managers that I've trained in and given them access to those pages. And I help them with their content. But the best part is that they've built these really great relationships with peers at their own schools. So they're able to be on site every day and collect content that I just might not get because, as we know, can't be everywhere all the time. So
Yeah. So do those, if I can ask, do those social media managers at the schools, is there a small stipend or is that just a volunteer?
it is volunteer only. It
Okay.
was a lot of hyping up that position and here's the opportunity to tell our story and share the cool things that are happening. So
Okay.
yeah, they do a great job with it.
Okay. And then that community page, is that a Facebook page or is that a Facebook group that your community?
It's a group.
Okay. And sometimes
Yep.
that can be great and sometimes it can be a little challenging, but you're finding success posting occasionally in there as yourself or as the district if you're sharing.
As the district.
Okay.
We also we are actively in there almost every day, kind of monitoring what's going on in the community, but also responding when necessary. If we see someone with a general question about our district or something that we know we can help with, we'll go in and respond through the district page, but sometimes we'll sign it as with our names in the communications department just so people can get an idea of who's responding to them.
Okay. I feel like this podcast could be like 3 hours long if we wanted it to be, because there's so many things I want to dive into. Jennifer and Laura, we're going to give both of your contact information on the show notes so people could reach out later. But today I wanted to really focus on, I just think it's so cool how your school district has really invested in school communication, in school marketing, and then also in developing the right tools to do a great job. And you recently shared an excellent session at the Minspur event about your rollout of a new district-wide communication platform. And it really closely followed the RPI process: research, planning, implementation, evaluation. So I'm thinking maybe Jennifer, you'll start with the research, but just about how did you use some data to kind of inform you on what you needed to implement to help with your, challenges with communication?
Sure. The research started with just what we call street data, which is word on the street, right? We were hearing that there was too much in too many different places. Families just couldn't keep track of all the information. Oh, I saw there was a school carnival, but I don't remember where I saw that. Teachers were frustrated with what they could or couldn't use, and everybody seemed to have a different platform. So even at the district level, what we would use for district-wide communication and what principals had access to was different than what our teachers or our coaches or our outreach workers had access to. So we knew there was something wrong. What we did was we have a communication survey that we give to our secondary students, our staff, and our families every 2 years. We used that 2 years ago now to add on some extra questions really about this, and also if they could design the perfect new communication tool, like what would they use, what would they want to have included in that. We gave them some examples as well so they could kind of rank some of the options that we knew were out there. We conducted this survey and we had over 837, well, exactly 837 parents and guardians respond, 209 students in grade 6-12, and 206 staff members, which is, in my world, an amazing response rate for a survey. So we were able to use that to really understand what some of the issues and concerns were, as well as some of the things that was working really well. That was kind of the foundation piece. Along the way, we did some focus groups. We had a committee that was providing input. We talked to other districts. So kind of a lot of little pieces, but that survey was really our foundation.
Awesome. And so you ended up using all of that to kind of select a platform that you felt was going to be the best fit for you.
It definitely helped us with the RFP process to know what to ask for and what was a priority for our families and our staff. that way we could kind of rank then those proposals that came in. We had 6 different vendors that sent in proposals for us. And it kind of gave us that rubric, right? Like, this was super important to folks. Do each of these groups have it? You know, this is kind of important. Who has it? So it was a really good guide.
Yeah. And what platform did you end up selecting?
We ended up going with Parent Square.
Okay. And I have had the founder of Parent Square on this podcast before. Anu is amazing, and I know that they have a great platform. I actually was just talking with the school district in Michigan, and they were talking about our social media services, and they're like, we decided to invest in, our website and communication. And I'm like, oh, who'd you pick? And they said Parent Square. I'm like, awesome decision, right? Really, really important to get that. And it's going to help provide some of those answers and some of those common, I guess, touch points for parents, students, staff. I'm sure many of the listeners are like, oh my gosh, we have that same thing, because I am a parent, also a school communicator. And it's like, where did I see that? Where's the information? Is that today or tomorrow? And then you can't find it. So, so selecting, obviously there's different vendors out there, but you guys really put a lot of effort into, once you select and make the investment, now you got to onboard and, get it in a district your size. And I really enjoyed the way that you kind of shared the open, honest of how it went and maybe some things you do different. But I don't know, Laura or Jennifer, who wants to talk about that, the onboarding, and kind of what was your strategy in that kind of implementation process?
Sure. I can kind of get us started and talk about the strategy piece, and then Laura can talk about the ongoing training and support that happens. When we knew we were doing this because we knew there were issues. So it really started with an awareness campaign that this was a thing we were looking at. This is a thing we wanted to do. And that started with the launch of those surveys. So before we even had a committee put together, it was like, hey, here's your survey. In addition to wanting to know about how we're communicating, we want to know about some tools for a new platform, right? So people were aware that this was coming. No one likes to have change sprung on them. No, nobody.
Right.
Once we had that in place, then it was kind of a 4-phased approach. We wanted to start with things, just introducing it, getting people excited, keeping things manageable, and then advancing it, getting people to fully use it, and then that ongoing piece. So kind of growing it out a little bit over a period of time. We had an overlap with our old platform and our new platform. So we were able to, folks could continue to use whatever it was they were using while they started transitioning to this. It wasn't just a switch that was flipped overnight. So we started with some site-based in-person meetings that included folks from the committee, including whoever their building or school rep was. So to kind of lend it some buy-in or some credibility that this is not a top-down thing that is coming at you from the district, but this is ground up, that folks, that help to choose based on your survey feedback. We had the president of the Union Education Richfield. He would do the intro to talk about how, hey, as teachers, we've been wanting something really effective to communicate with families for a long time. Here it is. Kind of what one would call a dog and pony show, right? So getting out there, getting folks excited, coming back a couple weeks later then, and then giving them a couple weeks to do an asynchronous training. So we'd set up an intranet page with just the basics. It's a lot to learn when you're learning a new platform, and Parent Square has a lot of bells and whistles, and we didn't want people to feel like we were throwing them in the deep end of a pool. We wanted to give them just the things that they would need at first to kind of log in, play around, set up their account, adjust their notification settings, things like that. So we built this intranet page that really synthesized that versus sending them to the Parent Square training desk, which is great, but super comprehensive and overwhelming when you're new. Then we came back and did on-site support at each of our sites for about a day. So as people they'd completed this asynchronous piece, now they had some questions, they were in there, they were using it, how does this work? So we had folks from our IT department, and Laura and myself, we were out there supporting. And then after that, we started to kind of build out some of the other tools. We added more training things to the intranet page for folks. And then at this point, about a month later, we had them start using the platform as their primary tool. After that, it turned into ongoing support, which we've been doing for about a year now. And I'll let Laura talk about that.
Okay. Quick question. or
Mhm.
just an observation. It's
Sure.
basically, so you have to make a decision and then you purchase this software, but then
Mhm.
you have to really sell it to
Mhm.
your staff members who are going to use it, right? And so you did that whole awareness campaign and then you were really getting them excited. And so it's like a lot of times we think about marketing in our roles as school communicators more to parents, but in this case, you kind of had to turn that all around to your staff members, which you were really intentional about. Can you just tell me a little bit more about that, Jennifer, of, the purpose and then the impact that that helped make?
Sure. I mean, I think the leading up to it and the excitement level, I mean, that was really just part of buy-in and getting everybody wanting to learn it. I think, as I mentioned, no one likes change sprung on them. It was the middle of the school year, which we also chose our timeline very intentionally. And there's a lot going on. There was a lot people were doing. So we really just wanted people to get excited and want to start adding this, to their list of things to learn and to do. And I think overall it was very successful. We did also have a communication plan for families, but it was much more succinct. They did have the same learning curve. They just needed to know it was coming and create an account if they wanted to change certain things. So it was a much shorter timeline for onboarding families. But we did show up at parent-teacher conferences and other events. We'd have a booth or a table there, so families were having questions or concerns, we could work with them. But if we didn't have that buy-in up front, it wouldn't have succeeded. If teachers weren't excited to use it, if our outreach workers weren't excited to use it, if our secretaries and principals weren't excited to use it, it wasn't going to be successful.
And I think you mentioned just now that your IT department and the communication department kind of partnered together to roll that out. I'm assuming that was pretty important in the success of the implementation.
Absolutely. Because there are so many technical pieces of a platform like this with the integrations, IT obviously had to be on board. Also, they're paying for it, so so we had them on board for that reason as well. And they provide a lot of that ongoing training and technical assistance. And then we need to be on board to make sure that everybody understands what it is, knows that it's happening, that it can launch successfully, and we provide a lot of that ongoing support as well.
Okay, awesome. And Laura, and then you kind of took over and have helped as it's been implemented in this last year. So share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think in a way the most helpful thing that we did was making sure that support was easily accessible and available from the beginning. One of those small buy-in groups that we had was a group of building tech reps or tech leads at each building. So we've got, it's a staff member that is kind of that middle ground between the rest of our staff and our IT team. So we wanted to make sure everybody knew that there is someone directly in your building that knows this platform well already. So their first step for support, that they could go to their building tech rep. We had a chat going with our entire IT team, all of our building tech reps, and then communications. When they had a question, they could bring it to us and we could kind of brainstorm and get an answer for them to share back with their staff. And then for that next level of help, we just made sure that there was someone who manned our IT help desk, both like the chat feature and the phones, that would be able to have that answer. So making sure that the key support is trained before the start of that rollout was really, really big for us. The other things that I think were really helpful in the rollout were just creating time and making time for one-on-one and like small group instruction and help. For example, we had a really excited early adopting group of first grader teachers who wanted to learn how to send a newsletter, and they wanted to send like a similar first grade recap newsletter every week to their families. And so I met with them and I coached them in creating a template, and showed them exactly step by step how to send that to their families. And then the second grade team heard that they did that and they're like, oh, I want to do that. So then we did that with the second grade team, and kind of on and on throughout our various grades and schools. And then when we were creating templates, the other piece of it is like, how can we make it easier for our staff to use this platform? So in this case, creating templates with them and for them, it eliminates a lot of the duplicative work of like trying to post the same exact thing every week, but having to redo it. So besides getting people excited for the platform, we need to like give them support and make sure that we're making it as easy as possible for them to figure that out. So it's been kind of the main pieces of our ongoing support.
Yeah. And now so you implemented when? What?
This was March of 23.
Okay.
And as Jennifer mentioned, that was huge. Choosing to do this mid-year was so helpful because I personally, after having done it, could not imagine doing it in the beginning of school when everybody is just going crazy trying to get caught up and ready and prepped and training and learning all of these other things. So both for our families and our staff, it was really nice to give them the opportunity to learn this new platform and then go into a school year with this knowledge and experience already.
Okay. And then I'm assuming you get new staff all times a year now, but plenty of them maybe before a new school year. And so all of that is kind of into your ongoing training and with your staff going forward.
Yep.
Is that right?
There's multiple ways in which that's happening. I believe IT is doing some of the in-service pieces with our new teachers for their new teacher training. We also built out that intranet page much more thoroughly at this point now so that folks can go on there and kind of learn what they need to learn as well. And then we continue to have help desks and be available to sites and individuals.
Yeah. And, Anu, I think, explains a little bit in her podcast episode. I'm not sure what episode that was, but you can really email, your class, or you could email all sixth graders about some opportunity. You can, differentiate in groups, and it also makes it very easy to change or do languages, translations, right? So if you have a lot of Hispanic, obviously it makes it very easy for your staff members to, email or in preferred languages. Is that right?
Correct. Yep. It does auto translate into, I believe, around 100 languages. We have the ability to edit the Spanish translations because that's our dominant second language. So
Okay.
a lot of the times, especially for important communications, we have someone review all that who is a native Spanish speaker and make any edits that need to be there before that goes out.
Okay, awesome. So thinking about the way that you rolled this out, you did a lot of things right, but you still had a few things that you might want to do differently. So can you share what you would maybe want to do differently if you were to do this again?
There are kind of two things that come to mind, or that came to mind at the time that we made a mental note of for the next time we have to implement a large anything. The first was just really making sure we're clear on the expectations for use, because there was some confusion there. And I think IT had one, vision of who was going to use what, when, where, and how, and we had another. And then, of course, teachers had another. So we would want to be really, really clear, when we want everyone using this on March 1st, does that mean you can't use your other platform? Does that mean you have to move everything over here, or just your important communication? So just really digging into that one, I think would be important. But otherwise, we would keep the phased access, but what we thought might work a little better was if we phased it a little more by role. So we had people who had a little bit more capacity digging in first, like our school secretaries and our district office team, and start using that and getting families familiar with it, and then rolling it out to our support staff, like our student and family outreach workers and our social workers and our counselors, and then lastly, teachers and principals. And we thought that because then we have more people then who are more familiar with all of the bells and whistles, as well as all the little hiccups. So when teachers and principals, who are arguably the people with probably the least amount of time to wrap their heads around something new, when they were finally kind of getting in there and using it, they were surrounded by people who could support them in their building and everywhere else. So we kind of thought that might have been a better way to go, even though what we did worked just fine. That would be our advice for anyone else.
Okay. Anything you want to add to that, Laura?
The only thing that came to mind was, as much as I totally love and would suggest a mid-year rollout, there was some things that we didn't get around to using certain features, like our conference signups, because conferences were basically over by the time we had rolled out, and we were still in kind of that early phase. And then we were thinking, oh, well, we'll use this for our Connect and Assess, which happens before the school year. Well, we don't have a lot of staff around to help set that up before the beginning of the school year. So just thinking about some of those bigger pieces and the timing and where it lines up in your school calendar was something we probably could have done a little better.
Yeah. Well, I like that because I know that was a big takeaway that you guys shared. You were really intentional about making sure you were in person with these people, giving them plenty of opportunities to ask questions. But it sounds like you kind of trained like a whole building maybe at once. And what you're saying is if we could have tiered it by role, you would have developed some internal champions besides just that building tech lead. You might have had a group of 5, 6, 7 people that were more a super user or just had more familiarity. So you could have developed some help. Is that right?
Exactly, especially because everybody's using it different features in different ways based on their roles. People are using the one-on-one messaging and other people are using the posts for broader communication. And some people really like the signups and the RSVPs and the calendar feature. And so having a tech rep trying to know and do and use all the things is not as helpful as having a diverse group of people who've been using it for a few weeks already and have used those things because they know how to use them and they can say, oh yeah, so-and-so in, room 212, she's been using that. Let's go find out from her. Or the school secretary's been doing X. Let's go check with them. So I think it just would have broadened that level of support for our teachers and principals.
Yeah. So overall, do you think it was successful and how did you kind of measure that success?
Sure. Yes, I do think it was successful. We did a debrief with our committee as well. So kind of that whole process of the committee, but also then how's it going at your site? Are people taking to it? What questions are you having? That street data again. So just what are we hearing? What's the buzz? What's the chatter? Are parents talking about it in the PTO groups on Facebook? What are they saying? Monitoring the help desk tickets that came in. Is that, starting to taper off? Are there themes in there? Are there some common questions or issues? We kept our Google Chats up for all of our tech leads and folks and IT and school PR folks, so we could all communicate and watching that kind of taper off or hearing the positive feedback in there. So there was a lot of that, the little anecdotal stuff happening to tell us that it's going well. The hard data is coming in right now. So we do that.
Okay.
We talked about in the beginning was that communication survey where every 2 years. So we used that one in 2022 to inform our decisions around the product that we went with. We're launching it. It's literally active right now in 2024. So we're just getting that data coming in. We took out the questions about what do you want in a platform and added in, hey, how's it going? What's working? What's not working? What questions do you still have? What platforms are you accessing it on? Do you use assistive technology? And has this been working for you? Do you use the auto translates? Have they been accurate? So just kind of a lot of those nitty gritty evaluative questions. We've got about 200 or 300 surveys in so far, hoping to get a few more in before we start really processing that data. But just glancing at it in preparation for this podcast, it's looking really good overall. So I'm pleased with that. We also have an annual survey that goes out district-wide that asks a whole bunch of questions. And I've already seen some things in there about parent score as well that was very favorable.
Okay. And you shared some data of like before you implemented this tool, how many different types of programs your staff was using and a parent might have to interact with and kind of what that number is at now. Do you remember what that is?
That was 14. So we had 14 plus. So there were 14 platforms that we knew about that people were using. Remind, Class Dojo, Schoology, Seesaw, social media, just this 14 plus list. It is probably down to about 5 or 6 right now. What I saw on the surveys coming back in, people are still using Gmail, which is fine because sometimes you just need to send off a quick email or respond to an email that came in. So that's number 2. Parent score is number 1. Gmail was number 2. There's still a few people using Schoology, especially at the secondary level. It's our learning management system. And that makes sense in a lot of capacities if you're just going back and forth with a student about a particular assignment or a project that's uploaded into that tool. So that makes sense. We'd expect to see that. I didn't see anything in there that was concerning. No one was out there using these random stray apps or things. People are kind of in-house. We still have folks using Google Voice. Parent Square is rolling out something really similar to Google Voice that we will be looking at switching over to maybe next year.
Okay.
But that's when, you need to make that phone call and you don't want to use your personal cell phone number. So, there's a reason for that. So the things that people are using, there's a reason for it, but I'm pleased with the number of things people are using versus what they were using.
And I'm sure, Laura, just like anything, I mean, this is still just a starting point. You're going to continue to, communication methods change and kind of alter. I remember the days, Laura, you're probably too young, but I was, Jennifer, maybe not, where it was just like, why would I text if I can call you? And now it's like, why would I call you if I could text, right? And so there's all these things, but I think Parent Square and many other platforms, communication platforms, are continuing to evolve. So Laura, as part of your ongoing process of looking at those tickets, is some of that, hey, what does Parent Square already offer? Or are there additional things that, like the Google Voice or the voice options, are those things that you can talk with them about, hey, how do we implement something that might work for our school district?
Yeah, definitely. I know Parent Square is always evolving and updating. They have regular product update meetings and webinars and stuff like that. So it's been great just in the last year to see the changes in progress. For example, they are rolling out a phone option that is supposedly very similar to Google Voice. So we're hoping to maybe move to that fully, so we can really dial in everything with Parent Square. But we've been finding a lot of success just using this platform. Even our athletics teams, we were able to get them set up so that when our athletics office adds students to a team, they're automatically added to a group in Parent Square. The coaches have access to it, and it kind of brings everything in instead of the Facebook groups and the chats and the text messages and the team snap and all of that. So I think we're excited to see the different changes that Parent Square makes, but overall, they're providing some really great things right now.
Yeah. Okay, I was just thinking of a question. So do most of your coaches or teachers or people using this on the school side, are they using it on their computer or their mobile device, or both?
So according to the survey data I looked at a couple hours ago, most of our staff are using it from their computers.
Okay.
Some are using it for mobile. And then on the flip side, for our families and students, when they are reading and engaging with Parent Square, I think, Laura, I don't remember if it was 70 or 80%.
You said 85.
85% of them are doing it from mobile.
Okay.
So what that tells us is we want to make sure when we're designing our templates and doing our posts that we're thinking mobile first. So if you're doing it on a desktop, you're like, oh, these 3 columns look really good in a newsletter. Okay, well, on a mobile, those are all going to stack. And are they going to stack in the sequence that makes sense? And let's rethink that. So we were just talking this morning about, okay, how can we retool our templates or redesign them next year based on this data that we now have to ensure that our families and students, when they're getting this message, is working for them on mobile, even though most of us are on a desktop.
Okay. And one other question, because I always wonder if your staff, knowing that, it's another app they put on their phone, has there been any pushback of that? Like, I don't want another, because you only have so much storage on your phone or anything like that. Was that a discussion point from anybody, or is that a false worry for me? I mean, I always buy the most, and then I usually still end up running out of room because of so many photos and videos, but
it was a concern, but we were able to set it aside pretty quickly. Staff don't have to download the app, and neither do families. Things will come to their email. Things will come as a text message. If you don't have the app on your phone, and I don't, for a lot of reasons, I try to keep my phone really clean. You click the link in that text, and it'll open up in your browser. So you don't need the app at all. And that really helped staff as well, just to kind of keep that separate, because they don't want their work on their personal device kind of thing. So
right. Okay. Perfect. Glad I asked that question. If thinking about who was listening to this and knowing that we didn't get into all the detail that we did during your great presentation at MINSPRA, which I hope that you're going to potentially submit that for NSPRA, for the national conference, because I think it would be really, really helpful. Is there anything else that you'd want to share with the listeners today on the podcast?
Yes. So our communication survey that I mentioned a couple times has a base set of questions that don't change. And that is around, for our staff, how are you communicating? How often? What are you talking about? And then for our students, grades 6 through 12, and our families, what do you want to hear about? How often do you want to hear it? How do you want to receive it? And we use those to create communication guides, which then we update every 2 years. So then we will use them in staff training in the fall, and we'll say, look, your families and your students are telling us they want to receive communication from their teachers on a daily or weekly basis, from their schools a weekly or monthly basis, and from the district monthly or as needed. And they're telling us this is what they want to hear. And our students, what I was seeing so far this morning is they predominantly want to hear it in email, which surprised me, but like predominantly email. And our families were more even with the family and the texting and the email. So if we can take this information from the surveys every year or every 2 years and tell our staff, hey, here's some best practices. Here's what your folks actually want. That just helps to build that connection between our students and our families and our schools. So I think having something like that and sharing it back out, like, there's so many surveys and things that happen all the time in our schools, but what are we doing with it and who are we telling it to? We specifically designed this survey with the end user in mind being all of our staff who communicate with students and families so that they can do it as the way that people want it, right? And it's going to evolve over time. So I would highly encourage anyone listening to the podcast to develop a communication survey that they administer, maybe not annually, but every 2 years at least, and then share that back out with their own tips and guidance for families.
Okay, question for you, because I think you did this in the group. Would you be open to sharing some type of a draft link that people could look at for an example of what that looks like?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to include that in the show notes. Thank you so much for including that. And I also love that you're encouraging that because it really takes hey, we're the communications department. We're going to tell you how to do your job. No, you're just telling them what the people want. And they're telling us we want it. Now we're going to try to give you the tools to be able to make it happen. And when you understand the why and all of that, then it makes sense. And so I absolutely love that. Our pie for life, man. We should get those shirts made. Laura, oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, you mentioned NSPRA, so I figured it was a shameless plug is acceptable. We did not submit this for NSPRA, but we are doing 2 other proposal workshops that were accepted. So for folks who are listening who are going to be at NSPRA, I will be facilitating a workshop on the art of the apology, how to apologize after your district messes up. That's a polite way of saying it. And we may or may not be using an actual incident that may or may not have happened my first year in Richfield and may or may not have blown up internationally within an hour. So that'll be fun. And then as we segue to Laura, she can also tell you about what she's doing.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll be leading a roundtable discussion on the last day of the conference. So don't leave, come see me. But on a secret shopper project that I kind of came up with and led the charge with local districts and how we could work together to evaluate our enrollment process and see where the sticking point might be for families. So something that is easy to take home and replicate with your own districts.
That's awesome. So both of those, I mean, who doesn't need to know how to apologize? And usually, Jennifer, we're apologizing for something that we weren't involved with. Somebody else made the decision, but now we've got to apologize for it. So I love that. And then Laura, you're talking about the gold mine sessions that happen on Wednesday. I am telling you guys, that is like the best part of the conference. They're 20-minute sessions. You get right to the point. You get to get like 6 sessions in 2 hours. I got the most out of that last year, so do not miss out. And I love that you are collaborating with districts around you to help improve and who isn't facing enrollment issues and all of that. And so a lot of value. So see you guys in Seattle. Hopefully I'll be there. So hopefully we'll see each other.
We'll see you there.
But thank you guys. And then any other last tips, Laura, on this whole process? I'm just happy that you guys Like, it's a big thing to implement something like this, right? It's a big project. And for you guys to be able to now say, hey, I think it was a success, that's a big accomplishment. So I'm really proud of you guys.
Yeah, I would say if you take absolutely nothing else away from this, the one tip to keep with you is get buy-in, because that can be applied to anything you're rolling out at any level, at any capacity in your whole district. Is get the news from the people first, find out what they want, um, make it happen, and then close the loop that says, we hear you, we see you, we know what you want. Here's what we did. And then closing that loop with, how is it going? How can we continue to support you? So just get that buy-in, and everything else is gonna be fine.
Yeah. Absolutely. So as we wrap up, just want to take it back to social media, since this is the Mastering Social Media for Schools podcast. What would you say is your best social media tip? And I don't know if you each have one, or if Laura, you want to share.
I'll take it. Yeah.
Yes.
I think posting good stuff on a regular basis is what it really comes down to. I try to take it down to the why people follow us. Like, why follow a school? Why follow a district? It's because they want to see their kid. They want to peek into their kid's school or the school that's in their community. They want a chance to see a picture of their kid learning or playing. They want to celebrate the successes within our community. And so keeping that why at the center of whatever you're posting or writing about or sharing is really important. And then keeping graphics to a minimum is something that we've been working really hard on. I think that we're inundated with advertisements every day, all the time. They come from every direction. And I think we're learning to subconsciously tune out things that don't seem authentic. And so trying to keep that, student-centered, authentic lens into what you're looking into, what you're posting, what people are looking at, I think is really important. And I'm not saying don't brand your posts. I think branding is important, keeping your school's logo and colors out there so people can glance at it and know that it's from your school is important. But there's definitely a balance between a flyer style graphic with lots of text and a collection of high quality photos of students doing fun things. So finding that balance in the middle, I think, is important.
Yeah. This has been like a masterclass of goodness. I'm sure people I mean, I have 2 big pages of notes, and I'm sure the listeners have even more. What's the best way to stay connected to you guys if they want to reach out? Is email the best option, Laura?
Email is best, and someone really, really smart told me that I should start a social media at rpsmn.org email. It was you.
Yeah.
I've been listening. I've been going to your trainings and stuff ever since I started. So
Awesome.
we do have a social media at rpsmn.org email, and that comes to both of us. So it's the best way to get a hold of both of us at the same time, and any questions that come through there, we can get right back to you.
Okay, awesome. And any additional contact for you, Jennifer? Just use that email probably.
I think that one. And then if you can't remember the email, if you go to our website, which is richfieldschools.org, at the bottom of every single page of our website is a button that says I have a question. And we read those. We're the ones that filter that and send it where it needs to be. So you can literally start with, hey, Jennifer and Laura, and ask us a question, and we'll be able to get back to you.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of that form as well as that social media email, because again, you get both of us, and it's about to be summer and we've got vacations. And so if you're just trying to reach one of us, you might be waiting a while, but if you're hitting both of us at once, odds are good we'll get back to you really quick.
All right. Well, this was incredible. Thank you guys so much. And I just can't say enough, Laura, about your tips of that student-centered and being authentic. Just last week when this recording hits, Jake Sturgis and I'll have presented on video, and just the changing things of video. And it just resonates with, people are tuned out to things that maybe look more commercially or more even professional. Like, sometimes they just want that authentic view. And I think that's so important. It doesn't mean branding isn't important, but we've really got to focus on those pictures. And please, as you're going into this summer, look at your pages, your social media pages over the last year, kind of glance through those and maybe make some changes for next school year, because I think that that can be super powerful. So everybody head on over, take a look at the Richfield website, take a look at their social channels, and we will make sure to get from Jennifer that example of their survey. Just thank you so much for sharing today. I know it's a busy time of year as we wrap up the school year, but
Yeah,
this has been
thank
really
you.
powerful.
Yep, anytime.
All right, awesome. Well, you guys will be back with another fabulous guest, probably just one, not two like this week. But hopefully you can listen to this again to take additional notes and share it with a friend. Guys, there's a lot of school communicators out there who need some of this advice. So share this episode and we'll see you guys all soon. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Andrea.